In the heart of the Galactic Council's Grand Chamber, an urgent hum cut through the usual calm as a high-priority transmission flickered onto the central holodisplay. An elder counselor from the Macquarie species, skin glinting with bioluminescent scales, stood at the center of a restless assembly, her voice resonating. "Council members," she began solemnly, "we are faced with a troubling matter involving an unauthorized assault on a human outpost by the Zytherian Empire." The room erupted in murmurs. Representatives from dozens of species leaned into whispered debates. To the Council, humanity was a curious enigma, a species both fiercely adaptable and seemingly committed to peace since joining the intergalactic community only a few centuries prior. They had, for the most part, avoided large-scale conflict, navigating their affairs with uncharacteristic restraint for a young species. Only one individual seemed unaffected by the tension. The human representative, Commander Aaron Callahan, observed the proceedings in stoic silence. Tall and broad-shouldered, his piercing gaze swept over the counselors as if measuring each one. While the others argued, his dark, impassive eyes betrayed nothing of his thoughts. Callahan was respected among the counselors, albeit with a degree of caution. They knew him as calm, diplomatic, and loyal to the Council's decisions, though a touch of humanity's fire always seemed to linger beneath the surface. A reptilian counselor, Van Rail, hissed in skepticism, leaning forward. "Humanity has always been peaceful. Perhaps we overestimate their response. Why would they retaliate with more than a few minor patrols? They'll take their complaints to us, as protocol dictates." He gave a dismissive wave. The Macquarie elder, whose role was to mediate, nodded thoughtfully. "I am inclined to agree," she murmured, though her glistening eyes showed uncertainty. Callahan cleared his throat, and the murmurs ceased as the assembly turned toward him. "Counselors," he began, his voice calm yet carrying an unmistakable edge, "I appreciate your optimism. However, humanity's response is already in motion. The Zytherian assault didn't merely threaten us, it activated one of our oldest fail-safes. You may have heard it mentioned in passing." He looked around the room, meeting every gaze directly. "We call it the Ember Protocol." A visible ripple of tension coursed through the assembly. Van Rail's eyes narrowed. "And what, exactly, does this Ember Protocol entail, Commander?" "An ancient directive from humanity's early days in the stars," Callahan replied steadily. "It was a time when we faced annihilation at every corner, with no allies to rely on. The Ember Protocol was designed as a final, non-negotiable defense, activated only in the event of an existential threat. It will remain in effect until the initiating threat is extinguished." "Completely." The counselors shifted uncomfortably. A murmured phrase, "extinguished completely," echoed among them. The Macquarie elder raised a webbed hand. "Commander Callahan, surely this is an exaggeration. Our policies favor de-escalation, and your species agreed to these terms. Our council can intervene to restore peace." Callahan's expression didn't waver. "With respect, Elder, the protocol is beyond my control, or anyone's for that matter. It is automatic, inescapable, and as old as humanity's journey among the stars." He paused, letting his words sink in. "This is not a declaration of war, but a defense measure. Any force perceived as an existential threat to humanity will be met with overwhelming, indiscriminate retaliation." A cold silence fell over the chamber. Though many counselors had witnessed humanity's scientific prowess and cultural adaptability, none had anticipated the existence of a protocol rooted in such absolute terms. A junior counselor from a peaceful aquatic species ventured timidly. "But Commander, if this Ember Protocol is so absolute, can it be halted through our intervention?" Callahan's expression softened, almost regretful. "No. Once activated, the protocol does not respond to diplomatic appeals or even human oversight. Its only objective is to ensure that no threat to humanity remains." He surveyed the room. "If the Council desires peace, it may serve us all to distance ourselves from any faction hostile toward humanity. Venrail scoffed, his scales bristling. This is absurd. We cannot bow to one species' paranoia. If you do not cease this escalation, the Council will be forced to act against your forces. Callahan's eyes hardened. I wish that were an option, Counselor. But humanity does not negotiate with annihilation. The Ember Protocol's conditions are binding. Any interference will risk intensifying the response. The Macquarie elder turned to Callahan, her eyes filled with a blend of frustration and uncertainty. Surely you understand how such a response imperils our shared peace. Your own allies could suffer, Commander. His jaw clenched slightly, though his voice remained steady. We never wished for this. But if we are forced to defend ourselves to this extent, our objective will not be negotiation. It will be survival. He met her gaze, and for a moment, the counselors glimpsed a side of humanity they had only heard of in legends, a fierce, unyielding resolve honed through millennia of struggle. A soft chime echoed, signaling the arrival of a fresh report. It was a casualty update from the latest skirmish. The Zytherian forces were retreating, but they had suffered staggering losses. Counselors exchanged nervous glances, realizing that humanity's response was more immediate and devastating than they'd anticipated. Commander Callahan, the Macquarie elder said, choosing her words with care, we will attempt to mediate with the Zytherians. However, if they refuse our counsel, and if humanity's response continues unchecked, the Council will not look favorably upon these actions. Callahan nodded, his face unreadable. Do what you must. But understand, the protocol is indiscriminate. The Ember Protocol will burn as long as any threat to humanity exists. With that final statement, he turned and strode from the chamber, leaving a stunned silence in his wake. Counselors whispered to each other in hushed tones, faces pale as they comprehended the gravity of what humanity's representative had revealed. They had spent centuries curating peace among the stars, building alliances and diplomatic channels that spanned worlds. But now, a single directive, activated by an ancient protocol, threatened to undo all of it. The Macquarie elder looked toward the holodisplay, where a new report had appeared, a list of Zytherian casualties that was steadily climbing. We must decide, counselors, she said quietly, how we are to proceed. If Commander Callahan's words hold any truth, then our intervention may only bring more ruin. The chamber fell into tense silence, each counselor acutely aware of the weight of the decisions before them. There was only one certainty: the flames of the Ember Protocol had already been ignited, and if humanity's warning proved true, they would not be extinguished until every threat lay in ashes. A ripple of blinding blue lights flashed across Zytherian space as the first wave of human fleets initiated their assault. Stealth fighters moved with lethal precision, darting through the void, accompanied by larger capital ships whose darkened hulls seemed to absorb all traces of light. The weapons they unleashed were far beyond anything the Council had witnessed: projectiles that accelerated to near-light speeds, plasma cannons that carved through Zytherian ships like water through rock, and AI-guided drones that adapted mid-battle, outthinking enemy tactics within seconds. The Zytherian fleets scrambled to regroup, but with each passing moment, another section of their defense lines fell, their well-trained captains struggling to comprehend the sheer power humanity wielded. Panic set in as entire strongholds crumbled before the onslaught, space stations shattered into floating debris fields. Human forces struck with terrifying accuracy and seemingly endless resources, and their advances left no chance for counterattack. To the Zytherians, it was as if their attackers knew every weak point, every vulnerability, exploiting them with a ruthless efficiency that bordered on clinical detachment. What had begun as an offensive skirmish against an isolated human faction had turned into a nightmare, one that the Zytherians had no hope of waking from. Desperate, their leaders sent frantic pleas for help, invoking ancient alliances with the Council to intervene and halt the relentless human incursion. Reluctantly, the Council dispatched mediators to negotiate with the humans and bring the conflict to an end. But their attempts to contact human forces were met with silence. The Ember Protocol was in full effect, and diplomacy was no longer part of humanity's plan. Council representatives watched helplessly as each effort to mediate fell on deaf ears, each plea dismissed by the humans as irrelevant to the unfolding directive. Humanity's fleet, vast and ever-moving, showed no sign of stopping as it systematically dismantled Zytherian military and civilian infrastructure alike. It was a ruthless display of power, one that horrified even the most battle-hardened members of the Council. As the devastation spread, the Council realized they had gravely underestimated humanity's capability and resolve. Until now, the galaxy had only known humans as allies, adaptable and intelligent, yet rarely seen as a force to be reckoned with. But the Ember Protocol had lifted that veil. For the first time, Council members saw humanity's military strength in its raw, unfiltered form. The weapons they deployed were not only advanced but terrifyingly effective, designed to eliminate threats with totality. Humanity's representative issued a stark, direct message to the Council. If we are forced to protect ourselves, we will ensure no threat remains. The message was clear: humanity would leave nothing standing that posed even the faintest threat to its existence. The Council debated urgently, voices raised in panic and fear. They knew that if this course continued, the entire galaxy's stability would be at risk. The Zytherian Empire was only the first target. If humanity's interpretation of threat expanded, their next moves could bring ruin to any species deemed an obstacle. But even in their desperation, the Council's attempts at intervention proved futile. Human fleets ignored the presence of peace envoys and any diplomatic signals, continuing their relentless advance with the calculated certainty of a machine executing its programming. The Council's realization deepened as more Zytherian colonies fell. What had started as a military campaign was now complete annihilation, the systematic dismantling of a civilization. Every strategic point, every supply line, every communication hub was reduced to smoldering fragments in space. Reports arrived from the front lines, detailing the efficiency with which human forces moved, adapting to every feeble countermeasure the Zytherians attempted. It was as if the humans were everywhere, striking with an intensity that left no room for recovery or retreat. Zytherian strongholds that had stood for centuries were rendered into silence, a haunting testament to the ferocity of human defense. The Council convened with humanity's representative once more, desperation coloring every word. Commander Callahan, this war must end. We demand that humanity cease fire immediately. The Macquarie elder pleaded, her voice betraying fear. But Callahan's response was calm, even cold. The Ember Protocol does not recognize demands or petitions. Its objective is to eliminate any existential threat to humanity, fully, completely. Until that objective is achieved, this campaign will not end. As Callahan's words sank in, the Council's fear turned to resignation. They were facing a force driven not by hatred or conquest but by an unbreakable resolve to survive, a resolve etched into the very fabric of human military doctrine. A murmur spread among the councilors as realization dawned. Humanity's military power was not only beyond their understanding, but its objectives were uncompromising. They tried one last time to mobilize their allied fleets to aid the Zytherians, to mount some form of resistance. But with each passing moment, new rumors spread throughout the galaxy, rumors that struck fear even into veteran fleets. No force in the galaxy can stop humanity once the Ember Protocol is engaged. And so, the Council watched as the Zytherian Empire crumbled under the might of human retaliation, piece by piece. They had once believed that they knew humanity, a species with fierce intellect but moderate in its ways, balanced in the way it handled conflict. But the Ember Protocol had unveiled another face of humanity, a face that struck terror deep into the hearts of every member in the Galactic Council chamber. They had thought they were witnesses to a warning from an ancient past, but now they understood, this was not a relic of history. This was a promise, one that humanity was all too capable of fulfilling. The last of the Zytherian strongholds were in ruins, and humanity's relentless advance showed no signs of slowing. With a heavy sense of finality, the Galactic Council convened for what they knew could be their last meeting as a unified body. Tension crackled through the Grand Chamber as representatives of every major species gathered, fear and resignation evident on their faces. The Makari Elder, her voice steadier than she felt, issued a broadcast to all known species. No one is to interfere with humanity's retribution. Any involvement will be seen as defiance and will be treated as a threat. The warning, though grim, was the only assurance they could offer. Yet, even as they sent out the message, the Zythurians themselves issued desperate calls for support. Once they had held the Council's confidence, boasting an empire that spanned star systems. Now they were alone, watching their last allies dissolve into silence, unwilling to risk their own survival by coming to Zythuria's aid. Council leaders traded solemn glances, the weight of past warnings from their predecessors sinking in. Generations before, vague and cryptic messages had cautioned against provoking humanity, urging counselors to ensure peace at all costs. Now they understood with chilling clarity why those words had been left. The final battle was swift and merciless. Humanity's fleets, empowered by the unstoppable mandate of the Ember Protocol, launched a last coordinated strike that broke through every Zythurian defense in minutes. The surviving strongholds fell like dominoes, each one dismantled with precision, leaving the Zythurian forces shattered and their empire reduced to scattered remnants. The humans, adhering to their grim directive, did not stop until every Zythurian vessel and fortress capable of military action was destroyed, ensuring that any future threat from them would be impossible. Then, as the dust settled over the annihilated fleet, a message from humanity's command rang through council channels. This was a defense, not aggression. Remember, we did not initiate this conflict. But if we are provoked again, the result will be the same. In those few words, the humans offered no apologies, only a promise, one that echoed the fate of the Zythurians as both a warning and a deterrent to any species who might consider challenging them. And with that, the human forces withdrew, their presence dissipating into the vastness of space as abruptly as they had arrived, leaving a galaxy shaken to its core. In the aftermath of the Ember Protocol's rampage, the Council moved quickly to codify a new law, one they hoped would prevent future devastation. Under this new mandate, no species was permitted to initiate hostilities against humanity, regardless of perceived grievances or provocations. The fear of sparking a second Ember Protocol now loomed heavily over each council session, silencing any objections with the quiet memory of smoldering Zythurian worlds. The law, backed by a rare unanimous vote, was an unprecedented move for the council. But they were driven by the indelible images of humanity's unflinching power, an image that none dared provoke again. As the humans' representative, Commander Callahan addressed the council one final time before departing, his words simple and resolute. Our ancestors warned you for a reason. We do not seek conflict, but if we must defend our own, we will ensure that no threat remains. With that, Callahan left the council chamber, leaving in his wake a silence marked by both awe and fear. The galaxy was left to grapple with a truth as old as humanity's first days among the stars. Humanity's resilience was not a boast, but a declaration forged in survival. The Ember Protocol, once a relic of their history, had left an undeniable mark on every species in the galaxy. What had once been cryptic warnings and legends of humanity's wrath had become an unassailable truth. In the minds of every council member and across every star system, a single lesson was etched: never again would anyone provoke humanity's defense.